Hi everyone, I want to take a moment to go over some different painting techniques you can use to get unique textures. I have 4 different ones I'll go over here. I laid down some quadrants of my cadmium-free yellow deep, which is my warmer, more golden yellow. A cadmium yellow would be fine as well, but I generally try to get cadmium-free reds and yellows, just because cadmium isn't a great chemical to be exposed to over time, and it's not great for the environment either. Luckily these days they are making some cadmium-free versions. So on top of this, I will use my dioxazine purple, and I just chose a complementary color pair of yellow and purple. They're opposite one another on the color wheel, kind of for dramatic effect here. So they'll really bring each other out. Okay, so we'll start with the scumbling. Now, scumbling is when you put only a tiny amount on the brush. So just a little bit on the very end. And then it's really, another word for scumbling is dry brushing. And it gives this sort of dry texture to it, where I'm just moving it around with the brush. I might add a little mixing medium to move it around even more, although then it becomes more like a glaze. And because these are complementary colors, they look kind of brownish when they're glazed together, or when there's kind of a see-through layer on top. In a way, scumbling is kind of like glazing, except more texture to it. And you don't really need the mixing medium. And in this situation, since I'm using a tiny brush, that's even enhancing the rough texture of the scumbling. Now generally, you'll want to use scumbling for closer layers of the painting, or really any of these textures besides glazing. Glazing can give you a smooth texture. Any of these textures are great for up-close areas of a painting, areas you want to appear near to the viewer in space, because coarse textures tend to pop forward in space in a painting, and then smooth textures are great for backgrounds and such, because they have the illusion of being far away. Okay. So next one is Sgraffito, and for Sgraffito I'm just going to paint a fairly thick layer of my dioxazine purple over the top of my deep yellow, and then I can take any sort of pointy tool like a palette knife or the back of a brush, and I can come in and actually scrape the paint away and get the Sgraffito technique. Now my camera is just going way more in and out of focus than I would like, so I'm gonna readjust it here to see if I can improve the focus, but so that you guys can still see everything. Okay, let's see if that helps. Of course, I have to clean the palette knife in between scraping to get this to work. So once again, really intense, coarse, gritty texture. Great for areas in a painting that you want to be a focal point or appear close in space. Okay, so glazing is one that you are most likely familiar with at this point, but this is just where I use mostly mixing medium with a little bit of paint to create a see-through layer. Goodness, this camera is just not working with me here. Oops. Alright, well, hopefully you can get the idea of it's just because you add so much mixing medium, it's usually 3/4 mixing medium or more to maybe 1/4 to 1/6 or 1/8 of paint to get this kind of see-through layer. And if I wanted the glaze to be even lighter than this, I could just add even more mixing medium on top. And you can see when it mixes with the yellow optically, it looks more like brown because complements when mixed together tend to make a brown color. But then it looks more like a lavender when we can see the white paper underneath there. Okay, the last one is the easiest to remember because it's exactly what it sounds like, and this is just palette knife painting. And this also tends to create a lot of texture. The palette knife I'm using here is kind of old, and it does have a lot of like old paint caked on it, so it doesn't work as well for this as perhaps a fresh new palette knife would. And I can kind of get into some sgraffito as I'm doing this as well and combine them together, and it just gives me a really sort of intense expressive texture. Okay, so if ever you're looking to make a certain sort of texture, you might try scumbling, sgraffito, glazing, or palette knife painting to get a more interesting and unexpected texture.